Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining. We'll be starting momentarily. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Common Ladder Accidents and How to Avoid Them, the first webinar in our 2025 National Ladder Safety Month webinar series. My name is Susan Arenga. I'm the Executive Director of the American Ladder Institute. Our sponsor for this webinar is Little Giant Ladder Systems, and with us today are Kenyan Allan, VP of Broadcast, and Dave Francis, Director of Safety, to lead today's presentation. But before we begin, some brief background information. The American Ladder Institute, or ALI, is a not-for-profit trade association dedicated to promoting the safe use of ladders. Its members are affiliated with the ladder and ladder component manufacturing industry, and ALI is the American National Standards Institute approved developer of ladder safety standards. National Ladder Safety Month, observed in March and spearheaded by the ALI, is the only program dedicated exclusively to promoting ladder safety at home and at work. This year is the 9th anniversary of National Ladder Safety Month, and we are excited to bring you a new series of webinars covering safe ladder use. We are grateful to Little Giant Ladder Systems partnership on this webinar. Through its innovative climbing solutions, Little Giant focuses on raising awareness and prioritizing ladder safety. A couple logistical announcements. All attendees will remain muted for the program. At the end of the presentation, attendees can ask questions by typing them into the questions feature. And this webinar is also being recorded, and we will share the recording with all attendees later this week. Recorded will also be hosted online at laddersafetymonth.com, where you can find additional safety resources. With that, I'll pass it over to Dave.
Welcome, everybody, to National Ladder Safety Month. I want to introduce you to Kenyan Allan, Little Giant's VP of Broadcast. Kenyan's been with Little Giant for 35?
No, 30. I'm not that old, Dave. 1995, no, 30 years.
And we're broadcasting from the Howling Studio. Little Giant has this advantage of broadcasting from our own sound studios right here in Springville, Utah. So we're about an hour south of Salt Lake City, and our factory's right up against the mountains. Beautiful location, nice snowy mountains. There's our factory. And our studio is built right here in our factory, made to look like an old warehouse, but this is all fairly new, state-of-the-art, award-winning technology so that we can broadcast ladder safety training out to you, to your organizations, to your companies, all free of charge. Kenyan?
Yeah. I'm going to introduce Dave.
Oh, yeah.
Dave started with Little Giant in 1982. Think of what were you doing in 1982?
They weren't born in
Yeah,
1982.
Dave started anyway, that's why he is an important asset to Little Giant, but fantastic guy. Everything that I've learned, a lot of it has come from Dave Francis. So thank you.
Between the two of us, over 70 years in the ladder business. So Kenyan, I'm going to step off and let you take the first couple of slides.
Let's jump into it. We appreciate the invitation from the ALI, and Susan, thanks for the introduction. Let me also introduce Paxton Wing, who's an important part of our team. He's back behind the scenes, so he's going to make this as immersive and instructive as possible as Dave and I kind of tag team why we teach what we teach. First of all, why do we stand down during the month of March? Why is it such an important initiative? Ladders are fairly simple. In fact, the rhetorical question is, how old were you when you first climbed a ladder? For a lot of us, we were 3 years old. Some of you, physically gifted, you might have been 2. We've been climbing on things, bunk beds, playground equipment since the time we could walk, right? So do people get ladders wrong? They do, right? How many electricians does it take to screw in a light bulb? Have you ever seen this one? And by the way these gentlemen are dressed, should we assume that they have the right ladder for the job? I would think so. That if they thought to put on the PPE, if they have appropriate footwear, they're working as a team, and they probably have an 8-foot ladder somewhere, back on the truck, back at the shop. But they've chosen not to use it. And I think an important part of ladder safety is just that, choices. What we do, what we choose, right? You can know the right thing and choose to do completely the wrong thing. So if you're taking notes, hopefully everybody's writing some notes, but the first note that we would have you take is that it's not just what you know, it's what you do. Common knowledge isn't always common practice. OSHA keeps track of the number of violations that they write. We'll take a deeper dive into this a little bit later, but it's interesting to see that the top 10 reasons that OSHA writes violations, now these are categories, but 4 of those categories are related to working at heights. More important than the violations, though, are the people that are affected. If we looked at OSHA's Fatal 4, now we need to disclose that OSHA does not track or report to vehicle fatalities, so understand that. But if we look at number 1, and then we compare that to something that's perceived to be dangerous, like number 3, 5 times more likely, false. And I think it's because we become complacent. We think of ladders as a fairly simple tool. We've been climbing on things since the time we could walk, and we don't take it as seriously as obviously both Little Giant and the ALI would like us to take it seriously. So hopefully at the end of this presentation, we all have a newfound respect for working at heights, but especially with portable ladders. When we teach ladder safety, we're going to break it down into 4 pillars of ladder safety. And these are the chapters that will follow. Number 1, that we're choosing the right ladder for the job. Number 2, inspection, how and why we inspect ladders. Number 3, that our setup is correct. And of course, number 4 is climbing ladders safely. So here we go. Number 1, chapter number 1, choosing the right ladder for the job. Should go without saying that when you're choosing the right ladder, that we want you to choose a ladder. It gets tempting to stand on things that were never designed to be stood on. And this could be something in the same room or just happens to be on the job site. This also affects us at home on chairs, tables, or combinations of these things. So let's at least start with a ladder. When you're choosing the correct ladder, the right ladder would be number 1, the right material, because that can make a difference. Metal ladders are great, a lot of really good metal ladders out there, but if you're working around any kind of electrical application, you would choose a material that's non-conductive. Wooden ladders, non-conductive. Fiberglass, certainly non-conductive. So choose the right material, appropriate for the work that you're doing. Choose the correct weight rating, because the weight rating makes a difference. 200 pounds, light, household duty, and then we get up into the more commercial or industrial grades. If we do a little bit of math, what's on the ladder with you? Often it's not just your weight that's on your driver's license, it's steel-toed boots. It's PPE, it's every stitch of clothing. If I'm out in Ohio or New York in March, I probably have 2, 3, 4 layers of clothing. And then it's also every tool. So we need to account for everything that's on the ladder. We also need to account for everyone. Ladders are a communal tool. So we need to think of coworkers or different trades or other people that might be on the job site. Choose the right material, choose the correct weight rating. Number 3 is choose the right style, the right kind of ladder. That can make a big difference. Step ladders are to be used as a step ladder, nothing else. Extension ladders to be used as extension ladders only. And multi-purpose ladders, they have multiple purposes. If we needed to work on stairs, of course, that's where Little Giant got its start 53 years ago. We do that in both aluminum and fiberglass. Now, OSHA gets very specific here. When we say choose the right style or choose the right kind of ladder, we should probably check in to see what the OSHA standard says. OSHA says when you're using a ladder, only use it for the purpose for which that ladder was designed. Now, what does that mean? It means that we don't makeshift solutions. It's not okay to call a step ladder on a Monday and then turn it into an extension ladder on a Thursday, right? Because that ladder was not designed for that purpose. No, there is innovation, isn't there? There are companies that are making ladders where the back legs are designed to be locked into position, top caps prepared to lean against surfaces, and also rotate to hug those corners, inside or outside corners. If we needed to rest it against a pipe or a stud, we could do that, but only because of its design. So make sure that you're only using a ladder the way that it was intended. And we think of step ladders being used the wrong way, but what about an extension ladder being used the wrong way? Can you imagine taking the 3 people that you trust the most? Now, more common than this, we also see people often take extension ladders and separate the sections and use those sections independently. That's also a no-no because that extension ladder was not designed to be separated. So make sure that you're only using a ladder the way that it was designed. Also choose the right size. This is review. Most of you probably know that when you're using a 6-foot step ladder, where are your feet? Your feet aren't at 6, they're not at 5, they're here, aren't they? They're safely at 4 and nothing more than that. So if my feet are at 4, then my application can be as high as about 10 for most people. So if my application is 12 feet, then I need to take the time, exercise the discipline to put that 6-foot ladder away and go find the 8-foot A-frame. Remember, do not stand on the top rung, do not stand on the top cap, again, unless your ladder is designed for that purpose, and then we would just turn it into the right combination so that that now becomes a standing surface because it's no longer a step ladder. So step ladders are pretty clear. I think we know where we shouldn't stand on a step ladder. What about extension ladders? When we're choosing the right size, does everybody know that a 20-foot extension ladder is not 20 feet long? It's actually 20 feet of material. So we have a 10-foot base section that stays on the floor, plus we have a 10-foot fly section that gets raised and lowered by the rope. 10 plus 10, 20 feet. What you might not know is that those sections are to be used in tandem. So a 20-foot ladder is 17 feet long because there's 3 feet of material that overlaps. Every extension ladder is measured the same way. So make sure that you account for the overlap of the material. And then OSHA also requires that there's overlap over the upper landing. Take into account those extra 3 feet that need to be placed above that upper landing or above the roof line so that you, your employees, can safely transition from the ladder onto that upper landing and then, of course, back onto the ladder. Make sure, put a star next to that one. That's a big deal. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So we take that into account to make sure that you're choosing the right length or the right size of extension ladder. Now, if a ladder's not tall enough, just some reminders here. Don't stand where you shouldn't. Don't stand on cross members, guardrails. Regardless of the piece of equipment, the top is usually not a standing surface. Also, don't sit or straddle even if a ladder's double-sided, do not sit or straddle double-sided ladders. Also, we're not to place ladders on top of other items. If a ladder's not tall enough, do not place ladders on top of boxes or barrels or, wait for it, tables in the gym. Yeah, that's the best. That's the best they could do. Choose the right size. Also, ladder sections are not to be tied together. I guess this happens often enough that OSHA has to write it into the standard where somebody thought it was a good idea with rope or wire to tie or fashion ladder sections together. So make sure you're not stacking ladders, and we're certainly not to stack employees either. Okay, again, I don't know where that picture was taken, just somebody's doing it. So choose the right ladder, choose the right material, the correct weight rating, the right style, the right size. Let's talk about inspection. Chapter number 2 in ladder safety is inspection. Here's a trick question for everybody. How much does a broken ladder hold? Right? We don't know. You don't know. Even Dave Francis doesn't know. How much does a broken ladder hold? So we don't want to guess. You need to assess the ladder's condition. And the only way that you're going to see if something is broken or missing or compromised is by taking a minute and looking the ladder over. It's called an inspection. And how often? How often are we supposed to inspect ladders? You probably know this, but it's before each initial use. OSHA mandates that ladders are to be inspected before each initial use at the beginning of your shift or at the beginning of the time that you've pulled that ladder into service. You're going to take a minute and look the ladder over. There's a great app. Let's introduce you to the NIOSH Safety app. If you're not familiar, NIOSH is the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. They are essentially the science arm behind OSHA, and they have developed a free resource for us. And of course, Little Giant doesn't have anything to do with this app. We've just found it. But as you're doing toolbox talks, as you're onboarding new employees, this may be a good resource for everyone. And there's a chapter in there about ladder inspection. But let's just go through a quick inspection, shall we, since we know it's everybody's responsibility. And let me also caution you that this isn't something that you outgrow. It's not just the new person. It's if you've been with your company for 15 years, 30 years, like Dave Francis here, 40 plus, right? If you've been with your company, if you're using a ladder, it is your responsibility. And also a really good idea at home, not just on the job site or through business, but at home, it's a good idea to look your ladder over. Make sure it's in good condition, because that part of the decision is within your control. Let's start at the bottom, shall we? Paxton, look at the bottom. The feet of a ladder are like the tires on your car. You're not going to drive your car with bald tires. Why would you ever use a ladder with compromised feet? The feet need to be present. They need to be in like new condition. They have traction for a reason. And if they're not present or new, then just swap those out. Again, a real safety feature is to have field replaceable feet. Okay, the side rails. Side rails should be inspected. Aluminum, that's one thing. Fiberglass, entirely different, because you've got a lot going on here. Different strands of material baked inside a resin or essentially a plastic. So if that side rail isn't sound, if it is broken or split or cracked, if you can feel the fibers on your fingers, running your hand over the side rail, if you can feel the fibers on your fingers, then that side rail has undergone enough stress that it's essentially become weakened. So tag that ladder, do not use, take it out of service. Fiberglass is also susceptible to what's called fiber bloom. We've all seen aging fiberglass, ladders that are stored outdoors on top of vans and trucks. They're susceptible to that aging deterioration. The industry refers to this as fiber bloom, where the harsh winter weather or the hot summer sun, I'm thinking of you, West Texas, right? The hot summer sun has deteriorated the resin to the point that now the fibers are coming to the surface. That's why it looks chalky and white. You're seeing those fibers come to the surface. And it's not so much you're going to get slivers in your fingers. It's that when those fibers become open to the elements, they may wick moisture or draw moisture into the side rail. And a waterlogged fiber is not consistently non-conductive. So that might be some new information for you. Tag those ladders, take those out of service if they've developed that fiber bloom. And yes, it does take years to get to that point, but just so that you're aware. Any standing surfaces, rungs and treads, steps, they have traction or texture to them. And if that texture is compromised with mud, debris, or anything slippery, make sure they're clean and also free from damage, because eventually a crease becomes a crack. And at some point, that cosmetic damage is going to cross the line into structural damage. And your company might have some best practices and protocols of what's acceptable and what's not. But at some point, cosmetic damage, structural damage, you'll need to know what that difference is. Also, all fasteners. Now, this includes rivets, nuts and bolts, anything that holds components together. They could even be welded together. Make sure that the components are tight and doing the job that the manufacturer intended them to accomplish. If you can hold onto the head of a rivet and rotate it, it's not holding on to anything. So watch for corrosion or loose fasteners. And also, if you're making repairs, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Any related components, this includes spreader bars on step ladders, top caps of step ladders, also any rope and pulley systems, locks, flippers, any locking components. If one part of the ladder is broken, missing, compromised, since we're not engineers and we don't always know what's a weight-bearing surface, what's integral to the safety of that product, err on the side of caution. If something's broken, tag that ladder, set it aside, and some repairs can be made, and some just need to be cleaned and lubricated. So make sure that you show your supervisor. Also, any labels. Labels are more important than people think they are. What you and I would call a sticker, OSHA refers to as safety information. So make sure that that information is legible for all employees. If those labels are torn, if they're faded, if they're missing altogether, that can be cause for a violation. So make sure that you keep up on those labels, and those, of course, are pretty easy to replace. And then if we have any supervisors here, finally, once a ladder served its lifespan and it's ready to be retired, we would recommend as a best practice that you destroy a ladder before you throw it away. Don't just lay a ladder neatly into a dumpster. You want to render that ladder into unclimbable sections because there is liability in what's in your trash cans. This is America. There is liability in what's in your trash cans. So make sure that you, again, err on the side of caution, render those ladders into unclimbable sections. All of that's within your control. So number one, choose the right ladder for the job. Number two, inspect it so you know it's in good condition. All right, chapter number 3, I'm going to have Dave come in and teach us chapter number 3 and chapter number 4. Thank you, sir. Let me grab my water and step off.
So the 2 first chapters that Kenyan covered really talk about the ladder, and covering those, choosing the right ladder and inspecting the ladder, eliminate the ladder as being a possible cause of an accident. So if you have the right ladder and you're using it correctly and you're and it's inspected, it's not damaged in any way, you can kind of eliminate this as being your cause. Now we have to talk about the human factor, you and me. What do we do to cause ladder accidents to happen? We're going to cover proper setup and proper climbing, but then we're also going to, at the end, kind of break down the common accidents that happen on job sites and how to avoid the 4 or 5 most common accidents. The first thing to talk about when we're talking about setting up a ladder is creativity. Creativity is the enemy of safety. We love people being creative in the design process, but then we've got to go through all the testing. We don't want you to get creative with bricks and boards and telephone books and whatever to try to set a ladder up in a hard to reach place. Get the right piece of equipment for the job. So don't get creative in your setup. We want to make sure that there's a couple of angles that we talk about when we're setting up. OSHA says, set your ladder up only in secure, stable surfaces. And if you can't do that, then you need to secure the ladder to prevent any kind of accidental displacement. And you'll see that word secure in place in several different areas of the OSHA standard. There's different ways that we can do that. Securing in place means tying down or staking down the bottom of your ladder. There's several different diagrams in OSHA documents on how to do that. Strapping the top of your ladder, and no, a bungee cord to a rain gutter is not a certified strap off or tie off at the top of your ladder. You want to make sure you're using proper equipment whenever you're tying them down or staking them in place. One of the problems that we have on job sites, though, is that the ground is never level. I mean, ladders are rarely set up in situations where the ground is level. And how big of an issue is that? Well, on a 28-foot extension ladder, 1 inch off at the bottom, look over there to the side there, 19 inches side to side movement with just 1 inch of displacement at the bottom. So even a fraction of an inch on a 28-foot extension ladder can really get your ladder leaning out of that position. So what happens on job sites most of the time? I hear your answer, what you're saying in your head, and I'll show it to you right here. What happens on job sites all the time is that people end up getting bricks and boards from the job site and building a Jenga pile of safety to climb 28 feet in the air. So you get a 300-pound or a 375-pound ladder, you set it up on the job site, and then you set up this little stack of garbage to try and level your ladder side to side. That's not the way you know that we need to do it, or OSHA says to do it. It's actually recommended that you dig out the high side, never build up the low side. So that means use the claw of a hammer, use a shovel, dig out the high side, level that spot where your ladder is going to be set up. Make sure that you're on firm, stable, level ground. Or you can just use a ladder that's designed to level to the work surface. So that little giant, in a couple of different options, easily levels and adds stability at the same time. So there are products designed that are going to make your job quicker and safer by solving that problem of the ground never being level. There's another angle that we have to worry about besides side to side. When you're setting up a straight extension ladder, OSHA wants you to set it up at 75.5 degrees. And they've given us a cool little diagram in the standard that says for every 4 feet you go up, you come out away from the wall 1 feet. But you can tell by that diagram, you're measuring to where the ladder touches at the top and then straight down, so not from the wall, but from that spot. So it's kind of a tricky little math problem. And I don't know about you, but I didn't do very good with math problems in school. Firefighters figured out that everybody's body is built at a 4-to-1 ratio. So if you stand at the base of your ladder and put your arms on the ladder side rail or on the rung, holding at shoulder height, you're going to set your ladder up at 75 degrees every time. So regardless of your height, your body is built at this 4-to-1 ratio, and just by doing this simple, put your toes at the bottom, put your hand at the side rail, you're going to have your ladder set up at that correct angle every time. Now, Kenyan talked about this earlier, but 3 feet above the roof line, in the number of citations that OSHA writes, that's the #1 reason that they write citations, is that the ladder's just not 3 feet above the roof line. So set your ladder up stable, level, and then secure it in place. If you can't set it up, secure in place is going to be kind of your safety go-to word. If you can't set it up exactly perfect, then securing the ladder by tying it down, staking it to the ground, making sure that that ladder is not going to move or displace as you climb it is going to be your best case scenario. So that's me setting the ladder up in the right position. How do I climb it? Now here's where we've made mistakes our whole lives, is cheating on ladders, and you'll see people do this one-legged balancing thing where they kind of hold on and do this ballerina move or Cirque du Soleil move, overreaching on a ladder. What do we do in this situation? What should we do in this situation? Well, best practice is, if you can't reach your work with just your wingspan, climb down the ladder, move your ladder over, and then climb back up. It's only going to take a few seconds to do, but this one's really critical. We talked about some numbers at the start of the presentation. Let me talk about this right now. Every single day in the United States, there's 2,000 ladder-related accidents. Fortunately, most of these are soft tissue, strain and sprain. unfortunately, there's 100 people that are permanently disabled on a daily basis due to a ladder-related accident. And every day in the United States, including today, there will be a fatality involving a ladder someplace in the United States. That's somebody's son or brother, sister that is going to pass away or be disabled. Almost all of those can be traced back to a combination of two things. One is overreaching on a ladder, and the other is how level the ground is beneath them. So you might have overreached 100 times previous and gotten away with it. But say the 101st time you set it up, the ground is maybe a half an inch off, and you reach the same amount as you reached before. This time it's going to go and tip over really quickly, and you're going to have that fall from height that involves impact at the bottom. Impact from even 2 or 3 feet off of a ladder can cause serious damage because it just moves everything from one side of your body to another, just like a car wreck. So want to take caution when we're on a ladder to make sure that we keep our belt buckle or our belly button, the center of our body, we keep between the side rails of the ladder. Never grab a hold of the side rail and stick your leg out and try to get that one last thing. Stop what you're doing, climb down, move the ladder over. This is for on the job site and at home. And I think on the job site, we have safety officers that are preventing us from doing those things. And then on Saturday, there's a football or a basketball game on, and we go out at halftime trying to clean out the gutters or take down some Christmas decorations. We're trying to get all that done without having to move that ladder. But those really catastrophic accidents happen when you overreach and the ground isn't level, or a combination of the two. And that's where we get those terrible statistics from. So don't become one of those statistics. Climb down, move the ladder over, climb back up. Couple of rules when you're climbing a ladder. Everybody's heard of the three points of contact rule. And as you climb, there's, of course, 1 foot and 2 hands, and then 2 feet and 1 hand. So if you're going to climb 3 points of contact, you really have to concentrate and be purposeful about your climb, because it is kind of hard not to just get going really quick and slide your hands and not make the proper contact. Now, the rule in the standard is as you climb up and down. So we want you to maintain 3 points of contact, maintaining balance and control as you go up and down the ladder. Other items that you're supposed to be bringing up the ladder with you, we want you to do that in a bucket or a lift. Of course, any tools that you can put on your person, on a tool belt or on a backpack are fine, as long as they're not going to cause you to lose your balance and fall as you climb. The main purpose of this rule is to get you up and down safely. And there's actually 3 rules that kind of go together in this standard. And the 3 of them together kind of show you the real purpose and meaning of the rule. Maintain contact with at least 1 hand, so 3 points of contact as you go up and down. Again, that's up and down the ladder. Face the ladder as you climb or as you go up and down, and then never carry any heavy objects or bulky objects that are going to cause you to lose your balance or fall as you climb. So you can see the purpose of these 3 rules right in a row in that standard are: we want you to climb safely, maintaining balance and control as you go. Well, what about when I'm working on a ladder? So the rule really said as I'm climbing up and down. Now, if your company standard says that you have to maintain 3 points of contact at all times, that becomes the rule. The OSHA rule says 3 points of contact as I climb up and down. When you stop to work, we want to spread your feet out to the side of the ladder, maintaining points of contact with the sides of my feet, and then lean my legs or my hips into the ladder so that you can see I'm maintaining these points of contact with my body, keeping balance and control before I let go with my hands to do any kind of work. Chances are, if you're climbing up an A-frame ladder, there's a job at the top of it that's going to require both hands to get that work done, because you're going to have tools, parts, things of that nature. So we need you to lock into the ladder, maintaining your points of contact with your body on that ladder. Now, at some point in my life, 3 points of contact wasn't hard for me to do at all. It just kind of happens naturally. Sorry for that picture so early in the morning, but 3 points of contact. Face the ladder again as you climb. Don't ever turn around. Best practice, just don't turn around and try and face the wrong direction on a ladder. You could put that ladder against that wall, and then you wouldn't have to use a 4-foot-long drill bit. A little easier that way. Little Giant has designed the back of this ladder so that 14 inches wide on that back rail, so that it can go between the side rails, or sorry, the side rails can go between the studs on 16-inch center. That's going to allow you to put that ladder right in line with your work. Again, we don't want you working sideways or leaning or reaching to the side of the ladder. Never try to move or walk your ladder, shift your ladder. Sometimes people will think, well, I'm up on the ladder, I can just rock it back and forth and shift it to get it to the next place. It's funny on a YouTube video. It's not really funny in real life, because that's how creativity, cutting those corners, is how those accidents happen. So, Kenyan covered choosing the right ladder for the job. That's material, size, weight rating, height. Then inspection. We talked about proper setup, doing it secure and level, and then securing it in place. If you can't get it on a perfectly flat surface, or you're out in the mud, if you're out in the snow, don't set your ladder up in a bank of snow. We need you to go with those feet down to the ground. It might feel like the ladder's secure, but the higher up you go on that ladder, the more torque you create. That ladder's going to drop in that snow and cause you to shift and move. Be aware of your surroundings above you in snowy conditions. More ladder accidents happen from snow coming off the roof than the ladder sinking in the snow at the bottom. So make sure that you're aware of what's above you, whether it's tree branches, power lines, or snow on a roof. As you're climbing, there's some tricky areas like parapet walls, roof lines where you've got to go up and over. That might be a combination of ladders in that situation. Secure in place, make sure everything's tied together, and you know you're not having any displacement or movement as the worker transitions from one ladder to the other. And then follow those basic climbing rules. Keep your body between the side rail. Number one rule, if you don't remember anything else about this presentation except for how cool Little Giant Studios are and how soon can we book it for another association or for my company, and would love to have it. The number one thing we need you to remember is climb down, move the ladder over, climb back up. Don't overreach. Don't try and get that one last thing. Falls from heights cause the catastrophic disabilities and fatalities every single day of the year, and we want to eliminate that number as soon as we can. So preventing injuries, saving lives by training and by design. Now Kenyan and I are gonna kind of go back and forth together and talk about the common accidents that happen on job sites and how we can eliminate them. So I'm gonna invite Kenyan back in, but I'm gonna start off with number one. the number one cause of claims, and these are the more common injuries that are going to be soft tissue, shoulders, and backs, are caused because ladders are too heavy and too bulky and too awkward. Think about an extension ladder. Very common, one of the most common ladders on the market. How do you transport it from your place of business to the job site? Well, it's usually on a truck rack on the top of a van or a truck. That's 6.5 to 7 feet tall. How do I get that ladder off of that truck? Well, the common answer I hear from a lot of people is, well, at some point I got to stand on the door jamb, I've got to stand on the tailgate, I got to stand on the wheel. So the most dangerous thing that I'm doing is actually getting my safety equipment off of the truck so that I can carry it over to where I need it to get my job done. There's several different ways to carry a ladder. Suitcase method, where you're holding it kind of down here at the side. You can stick your arm through the rungs and carry it on your shoulder. On a bigger ladder, I prefer to have it up on my shoulder. It feels like it gives me a little bit more control, and then in case of a stumble or a fall, I'm going to be able to get that ladder away from me. One of the real common causes of accidents with ladders is just that you get pulled into a fall or a drop because you've got your hands wrapped inside the rungs. If you can use 2 people to carry a bigger ladder, that's always going to be best practices. Some of your bigger ladders can easily be over 50 up to 80, 100 pounds, so you're going to want to use 2 people when that becomes necessary. Little Giant has made leaps and bounds forward in fiberglass technology in that we manufacture fiberglass 20% lighter than standard grandpa ladder fiberglass. It's a new process, still gives us that rigidity and that strength with just a thinner wall that's 20% lighter than it used to be. So we can reduce the overall weight of the product. That's kind of the no-brainer answer to ladders are heavy and bulky and awkward. Well, let's just make the material lighter. Everything that you have in life, sporting good equipment, camping equipment, all of those things, somebody's figured out how to make it lighter and stronger and better. Little Giant's just done it with ladders. Some of our bigger pieces of equipment, we've figured out how to put on wheels so we can just move things from place to place with no effort at all. So number one problem that we see on job sites is people get hurt because ladders are heavy, they're bulky, they're awkward. If you're buying ladders for the crew, know the weight of the ladder, know what your single carry limit is, put training practices and rules in place so that as people take ladders on and off the rack, they do it properly, carefully, and that they're carrying them and setting them up and not getting injured in a ladder drop. Number 2, that's going to be another accident that doesn't happen from falling off the top of a ladder.
Right.
But I'll let Kenyan talk about the number 2 problem.
I was surprised to hear that the second leading cause of ladder injury, I believe that the number is about 20%.
About 20%.
20% of reportable injury that happens on ladders is that people miss the bottom rung. It happens in a dark staircase at your house. You come down a staircase, you miss one step, and for some people it ruins their entire day. Well, on ladders, it happens 1 out of every 5 mishaps. So having a ground cue that reminds you that you're at the bottom, that's a pretty important part. Now, of course, there's environmental awareness and situational awareness. As you descend a ladder, you should know where that bottom rung is. But having a ladder designed or that bottom rung tell you that you're at the bottom, it feels different, it sounds different, and the climber essentially becomes conditioned that they're at the bottom. And you can see that it's here on the King Combo and over here on the Mighty Light that Dave's leaning on. So that, I think, is an important aspect of ladder safety, bottom rung indicator.
And Little Giant, as really the innovator of that ground cue on different pieces of equipment. So we have it on extension ladders, on step stools, on step ladders, giving that indicator at the bottom of that ladder that's going to let you know you're at. What we see a lot of is people are using like an 8-foot ladder all day long or a 6-foot ladder all day long, and then they run over and they climb up an 8-footer that start to come down, and they have a cadence that they just all of a sudden step off early, thinking they're at the bottom. This is going to remind them where the bottom step is.
Great.
Number 3 in ladder-related accidents is kind of tied to number 4, and we talked about them earlier in setup. But talk to us about the ground not being level and what Little Giant can do to level the ground with some of these leveling technologies.
Well, as Dave said earlier, when you're setting up a ladder, if that ground is unlevel just a little bit, that 1 inch at the bottom becomes amplified or multiplied as you get up close to the top. So what became a small problem, once we get up to a working height of 18, 19 feet, becomes a larger problem. So those are two tied together, right? That the unlevel nature of ground is then exacerbated by that overreaching. And if you had a combination of both, that's just a recipe for real mishaps.
So how do you solve that?
Let's talk about that. So things like the sumo stance that we were showing during safety training, giving us double our width at the base. Notice that they do store flat for storage, so they fit on existing racking systems on your van. But then when you get to where you're working, they double your width at the base. And the math works out to be that 6 times more side tip stability than a traditional extension ladder. So those overreaching accidents are mitigated or essentially eliminated, but that offers the protection through the design of that product. And then because these legs are independent, we can offset those a little bit longer than each other, but a lot of different graduations that we can make sure that we're meeting the ground where it is. Whether it's landscaping or new construction, we can adapt to that environment instead of taking the time to dig out the high side, as Dave taught us earlier. So really, it's a safety feature, but it's also the time and the productivity that it also adds.
Let me borrow that ladder to talk about the next one, overreaching.
Yeah.
So the ground not being level and then overreaching go together, as we talked about. You can get away with an overreach on flat ground, but if the ground isn't level, then it might cause you to tip and fall. On a traditional grandpa extension ladder, they are straight up and down from top to bottom. This is an award-winning Little Giant innovation from Little Giant called the Sumo Base. This almost triples the width at the base of the ladder. This is, I love doing this little trick. I'm kind of rusty at it, so hopefully I don't fall over. But we train you to stay within the side rails. But with those outriggers in place, you can see that even freestanding in the middle of the room, I'm not able to tip that ladder over because I've got those outriggers adding that added stability. So it's just going to prevent a tip and fall. We still want you to stay within the side rails, but even if somebody cheats or the ground isn't perfectly level, those outriggers are really going to prevent a real catastrophic tip and fall. So that's on the extension ladder. What do we do on an A-frame ladder? Well, everybody's heard about platform ladders, switching to platforms instead of A-frames. How do we do that? Little Giant's got several different options. I want to pull this one out and show you just how easy this is. I can roll this into place, move it around one-handed, drop these wheels down. I can engage these outriggers for added stability, especially when I'm going up to full height on this platform. And that's just the ladder passes all the tests without these outriggers, but it does feel really comfortable with those outriggers deployed. And then watch as I climb this ladder. 3 points of contact, up and down. I'm just going to walk straight into this platform, and these gates are going to lock behind me. So I've got this one-way walk-through gate, 42-inch guardrail all the way around. Now I'm able to work standing on this big platform, supporting my feet and working in all directions, getting things done. This particular caged platform is adjustable. So right now I'm standing 5 feet off the ground, 6 feet off the ground. I can adjust that up 1 foot at a time and get a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. The larger size telescopes from 8 feet all the way to a 14-foot platform. That's allowing me to work at 20 feet off the ground without having to tie off, because I've basically taken that guardrail system with me, and then I can just roll that up, move that out of the way. On some of the smaller, lighter jobs, we make the Fortress. You can see how thin and lightweight that is, but that's going to give you this great big standing platform. And then look at the top of this ladder as I open it up. Everything's going to fold into place and give me that guardrail, the walk-through gates. It's going to give me the tool tray up at the top with the compartments. Really, best of both worlds. Total containment at the top with that wraparound guardrail. Don't try and catch people after they fall. Prevent them from falling by putting that guardrail up at the top. So ladders are too heavy. Little Giant made them lighter. People step off early. We've given you the ground cue, that step indicator that lets you know you're at the bottom. And then the ground is never level. Little Giant has several different options on how to level that ladder with the design of the product, adding that extra support, and then giving you the outriggers at the base of your extension ladder to prevent any kind of tip and fall, or guardrails at the top of your platforms to give you that versatility and comfort of being able to work in all directions with that guardrail all the way around you, kind of in a scaffolding setup at the top of an adjustable fiberglass base. So both the best of both worlds. So follow the basic rules of ladder safety, choosing the right ladder, inspecting it, set it up properly, climb it properly, but then know on your job site, people will be injured because ladders are heavy, they step off early, they set them up unlevel, and they overreach. And there's solutions to all of those 4 problems. So we're going to open this up to questions and answers. Hopefully you found the presentation entertaining and educational. Again, Little Giant provides this service free of charge to any association that you might belong to. Company safety days, if you don't want to teach ladder safety, we need you to teach that. It falls as the leading cause of accidents, so let's teach ladder safety multiple times in a year. Have Little Giant come in and do it here from the studios, right to your training room.
And I think it's a reminder, Paxton, if you could bring up that standard. I think some people lose track that sometimes we might not keep track of those safety plans. And so remember that OSHA requires that if you are expecting your employees to use ladders as part of their tasks, that an employer shall provide training for those that are using ladders. So make sure that you're keeping up on that if we can help you.
Not might, but shall. So we can't see any.
Yeah, Susan, if there are any questions in that chat, we'd love to address those.
So if anyone has any questions, use the questions feature within GoToWebinar. I do have a couple already. The first one is, can I make repairs or modifications to my ladder in the field?
This is a great question, and I get this a lot. Can we make repairs or modifications on the job site in the field? Let me say, on job sites, a lot of the ladders that I see need to be tagged out and scrapped because for some reason we hang on to ladders way longer than we should. If you're fall protection harness had ripped seams, you would replace it, get it taken care of. You wouldn't jump out of an airplane with a damaged parachute or second-hand parachute. Don't climb 30 feet in the air on a damaged ladder, please. But there are repairs that you can do. Right off the bat, feet we want you to change in the field as often as you can. The feet on the bottom are really your contact to the world. Don't use ladders with damaged feet. Those are designed almost always to come off and go back on with a nut and a bolt or some screws. So make sure that those get replaced. Ropes and pulleys, those are easily replaced. Spreader bars, easily replaced. A lot of hinge components. What cannot be replaced, so spreader bar is going to be just a nut and a bolt kind of a thing. What cannot be replaced, and what we don't want people to do, is if the side rail of your ladder is damaged, bent, broken, cracked, or split, we don't know what it can hold. And you bolting a 2x4 inside the rail, we've never tested that. So you now become the crash test dummy on whether or not that's going to hold or not. So don't make those types of modifications to a ladder. If your rungs are split or cracked, don't try to add some weld or do something to that rung. Some rungs can be replaced in the field, but that'll just be ladder per ladder. If it can be done in the field, the ladder manufacturer will have a kit for it on their website. So we'll have a pre-approved factory kit for those parts that can be replaced in the field. But what we see on job sites is people bolting 2x4s or trying to tack weld a piece of angle iron in there to strengthen up their rung. Those types of modifications should never be used or done. So hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you. I have another one. I'm not sure if you can answer. Are wooden trestle ladders still legally allowed?
So wooden ladders are still, and trestle ladders are still allowed. They haven't been manufactured in a long time. So I don't know of any manufacturer that's still doing wooden ladders for retail right now in the United States. So my question would be, how old is it? How good of shape is it in? And OSHA told me in a meeting one time that they didn't have a very written down and specific inspection process for ladders, because the ladder needs to be inspected based on its usage, its exposure, its environment. So a ladder in a closet, janitorial closet that gets used once a month, that ladder doesn't need to be inspected as much as one that's on the truck out in the snow and rain and sun, getting beat up over time. So if those wooden trestle ladders are still in good condition, they're still inside of a shop, they still pass inspection, then they're still legal and you can still use them. But do look very closely to a lot of those older wooden ladders and know that wood absorbs moisture. One of the reasons why we moved away from wood to fiberglass is that you can see the defects where wood, you couldn't really tell, and wood can absorb a lot of moisture and become conductive when you thought it was non-conductive. So,
good question.
Yeah.
Any others there, Susan?
Yeah, there's several that are coming in. The name of the website for ladder inspections?
That would be...
Was that the NIOSH site?
Oh, yeah, the
Ladder
NIOSH.
Safety.
And that was an app that you'll find on a phone or a device. But yeah, if you just search for the NIOSH safety app or the NIOSH app.
And it's a free download, and that's what the icon looks like at the app store.
And there are national companies that we've had relationships with that actually rely on that for training their employees. Good app.
Another question, I know you answered this, but a good question is, how often should ladders be inspected and who should do it?
Before each initial use, By a competent person.
So that is a more complicated answer than just before each use. Ladders should be inspected when received brand new. So the most common damage to a ladder is in transportation. So inspection when it's first received into your company, inspect it at the start of every shift or before you climb it. Never go to a stack of ladders and take a ladder out and assume somebody else did it. You know, people break ladders and put them back in the stack so that they don't have to tell the boss they broke it. So make sure you're looking at that ladder before you climb it. And then ladders should be inspected periodically, regularly or periodically. And that word is in the standard. And we try to define what regular or periodically is. And I kind of think, well, the person who's going to ask you that question is the late night attorney that's suing your company. How regularly or periodically? OSHA isn't saying yearly, they're just saying regularly. Most companies have an annual plan where somebody from their safety department will inspect every ladder in a more detailed way. The inspection that you do at the start of a shift is a very quick visual of just making sure there isn't any dents or damage or breaks, but an annual inspection. And a lot of times those will include a sticker. Any industrial supply house or safety house will give you an inspection sticker you can put on the side of your ladder, and then it can be initialed and dated. And then there's apps also that'll allow you to track inspections as well. If you have one of those apps in your company, just add your ladders to that. So inspect them when you receive them, inspect them at the start of every use, and then periodically or regularly inspect those ladders, which usually means semi-annual or annually, by a competent person who either through training or experience knows what to look for and has authority to do something about it. Usually means somebody from your safety department that's been trained on all of the small things to look for and has some authority to pull that ladder out of service. We're at the end, but if there's one more question we can answer really quick.
Sure. I will answer one question we've gotten from several people. The recording for the webinar will be provided afterwards. We will be emailing it to everyone who registered. It will also be available online at laddersafetymonth.com, along with additional safety resources that are out there. So did want to address that since several people have asked that. And I guess one final question before we close: what is the best fall protection to provide employees when they're on ladders?
That's a loaded question. The best fall protection, better products, training, certainly training. Make sure that your employees are aware of the equipment, how to set it up, the same things that Dave and I have taught today. Make sure that they're aware and that you train them in the safe selection and the safe use of ladders. And also make sure that you're keeping up on those inspections. I'm not sure how else to answer that. I think that's going to be different for different companies as well. So the best equipment.
And here from the Howling Studios at Little Giant, we want to say thank you for kicking off National Ladder Safety Month with Little Giant. We're going to do another one on, I think, the 24th, a couple of Mondays from now, where we're going to focus a lot on home use, and we're looking forward to that, and then several other events throughout the month. American Ladder Institute, thank you for your help in setting this up and keeping everybody safe.
Great to have these reminders. Thank you, Susan.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us, and especially to you, Kenyan and Dave, for sharing your expertise with us. And we hope you found this webinar valuable. And like I mentioned, it will be online and you'll be emailed the video itself. Thank you for sponsoring our webinar, Little Giant, and to all of you for joining and to being dedicated to ladder safety throughout National Ladder Safety Month and all year long. Thank you all.
Be safe, everyone.